Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are on this fast forward planet. Here we are doing a Sunday Sanity show, which I have not done since uh, New Year's Day. I used to do Sunday music focused sessions all through the pandemic, along with my weekday stuff on COVID policy and climate change and all the like. And it's great to be back at this with Beth Nielsen Chapman and my old friend Dar Williams from the Hudson Valley. And it's really particularly cool because both have collaborated on songwriting workshops and the like. So you know each other really well. And we're going to talk about songs and politics, and particularly the female end of things. You know, what's going on right now, of course, with the rapid change in the Democratic ticket has really generated a lot of excitement. On the other side, they're flailing and being nastier than ever. And one of my questions for a long time, even when I was at the New York Times, is does music matter? What's the role for music here? And we're going to get into this song, particularly "Put a Woman in Charge," that Beth co-wrote some years back, sort of after Hillary and before Kamala, and with Keb Mo and John Lewis Parker. And we're going to dive right in. I want to ask Beth first. Well, first of all, how are you doing? And Beth, are you in Nashville?
I'm in Nashville, yes. Yeah.
My
and Dar,
oldest-
are you back home?
I am in the Hudson Valley.
Oh, yeah. And I do miss aspects of the Hudson Valley. I lived in Dar's Town for like 30 years.
That's such a great spot in the world.
Yeah, I'm now up in down East Maine and Wabanaki territory on the shore of an inlet here. And there's a wonderful musical community up here too. Actually, at the end of this, I'm going to play there's a seaweed farmer who wrote a pretty interesting song about Donald Trump that I'm probably going to stick in the mix. But let's just start with Beth Nielsen Chapman, who you've been working for decades as a singer-songwriter.
Since time began.
Luminous career in the sort of Nashville songwriting world. And, I was just so struck by Nick Cave talking on Colbert about how he drew power, how he deals with loss. And you've had your long series
it's been a
of
wild
battles.
Ride.
Yeah, that have, but you've found a way to pull from that power and creativity even through all that.
Well, I think, most songwriters, and I think Dar would probably have her own version of this experience. Dar, you probably have done this too. So often I'll write songs that I don't know quite what I'm writing them about. And I'll be about 2 years ahead of the thing that the song ends up being about. And sometimes when I write by myself, I take a really long time to finish a song. So I'll be working on it for a year. And then, I've lost 2 husbands to cancer and wrote so many of the songs each time sort of before I really realized what they were about. And even it also happened when I had breast cancer. And it's not, it's not so much coming from my brain or my memory. It's just coming from this sort of place of connecting in with creative flow, where all the kind of wisdom beyond my little pea brain is, which is where I want my songs to get stuff from. And then it sort of drops in and I don't quite know what it means yet. And then I just, a lot of the work part of it is trying to find out what the song wants to be when it grows up. And just that whole process to me is so magical and mystical. And I love being a teacher, because you can't teach someone how to write a song, but you can teach them some of these ways to look at it that opens it up and makes that experience more possible for people that think they have to know what they're doing. And I just had this wonderful experience going and being a guest at Dar's retreat a couple of weeks back. She has such a great tribe. I mean, these people are amazing, amazing humans. And then she just went to teach at Rodney's, which I've done a couple of times. He's got a whole different kind of songwriting camp. So, I mean, I really feel grateful that I get to do that part of the time besides writing songs and performing them. I love finding new ways to talk about it and teach about it so that people get free from their own limitations, really.
Yeah, I'm showing some TikTok from your recent collaboration at that session. Dar,
so fun.
Dar, you wrote a book called How to Write a Song That Matters. And this is a really interesting question. When we get serious about songwriting, when the song has a mission, some people would say, well, that's not what songwriting should be about. It should just be beautiful music. So how do you get at some of what Beth was just talking about.
I love what Beth just said about getting past her pea brain to the bigger wisdom. Because I was like, I mean, yes, you can write a song that is just nad, but generally every song I write has something to do with where something will come up to me and say, this is going to be a song. It has something to do with my humanity. And because I love my pea brain. My pea brain gets me to the rental car count, gets me, and it's very judgmental. It says, oh, I want to stay away from that person. I want to, but my wisdom is what keeps on opening me up to being like, wow, I'm alive on a living planet, and it's limited, and it's and people do astounding things, and the planet does astounding things. Like the wisdom is kind of where the songs are, and this like what I call the silver key. That moment when you're like, ooh, I'm gonna start with this sentence or this is I think kind of the key into something that I think is an important thing for us to value. And I'll say I wrote I did a class. I'm gonna put a thing in my mouth. I did a class about music movements in a capitalist democracy. And that sounds very heavy, but really it was sort of saying, here we have this economy that's based, that's just gonna be, what could go wrong? It's based on profit. It's very abstract. It thrives on low labor standards, low environmental standards. It thrives on everybody wanting the same thing and not necessarily wanting, not only do we want everyone to buy a troll doll, we want them to buy the pink-haired troll doll. Like I call that maximum production, maximum seduction. Like that's what our economy wants. And then democracy is what helps us say, I care about my neighbor. I care about my neighbor. I really would love whether I have kids or not. And I've always said that. That's not a slight against JD Vance, but you care about kids being educated and fed and cared for, and people who are vulnerable, people who are in trouble, and you feel trust. I think that music is one of both creating music, just allowing ourselves to be music creators. And that's why I lead a songwriting retreat, and Beth leads songwriting retreats. She does so much. It's about reminding us to get past the pea brain and to find that wisdom and that care for the collective. And then people going to a concert, they listen to music together and they remember their shared values. That's really important. And then finally, you've got like cool lyrics that remind us of our values. But there's so many things along the way in music, what's called musicking, that kind of help us remember that it's not just about getting from here to there as quickly and as, wealthily as possible.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And also, there's so many dimensions to what we think of as music, even within the activism music community. I want to take us back, though. I was searching around for like the history of presidential and political song. And here's one from 1884 that was field recorded. The candidate's a Dodger, and it was
Wow.
it was about a Republican from Maine who was running against Garfield in 1884.
That's incredible.
That field recording was from 1934. Emma Dusenbury.
And look at her. Oh my goodness.
I know. It's just so amazing.
What a force.
So this is not like new either. And then of course, if you on YouTube, there's some amazing collections of songs from women's suffrage movement, the 19th Amendment. Yeah. And there was the 70s and women power through the women's liberation. It's just so interesting to see the history that you're building on. Now, Beth, I'd like to get to this song.
Yeah.
Put a Woman in Charge. I heard there's a really good, interesting explanation you gave in a video online, but can you take us back through it? You were coming home from a tour or something, and you were...
Yeah, I had really bad laryngitis, and I was standing in the kitchen telling my husband I'm going to go lay down. Only I was like, I gotta go lay down. And my voice was shot. And then right at that moment, the phone rang in my hand, and it was Keb Mo. And, like, that's pretty cool, Keb Mo. So he's like, can you come over right now? I'm like, yes, I can. I'm barely barking. And my husband's like, what part of I'm going to go lay down is that? I'm like, that's the part where Keb Mo called me, and I'm going over there. And we, he was already had this little idea started with John Lewis Parker, and they'd written a bunch of songs over the years, and we had so much fun writing it. And I love the way that, when I walked in, he said, now it's going to be, and this was right after, it was not too long after the Hillary thing. And we were all still kind of getting our sea legs back from that. And he said, I want it to be overly political. I'd like it just to say things that are true, that no matter what your political position is, you'd have to agree with that, like, okay, so we want to be factual, so every line opens up like, way back when, in the beginning of time, man did this, that, and the other thing. And like, we didn't say anything in there that wasn't real. So
Right.
I love that. And, then it's just my opinion is put a woman in charge. And, when you're talking about the collective, this creative flow, this river of creative flow, I also think I think of it as the collective wisdom of what would be the next best thing we could do, no matter what it is. And I also think of it as the corrective. So, this song was a little ahead of its time, but it corrects a thing, I think, on a humanitarian basis. Do you want me to play a little bit, or do you?
All right, yeah, now that we checked those audio settings, I think go for it. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So this is with a little bit of a wrist injury on the mend. I put a little piece of foam in my guitar so I could sound cool like Bruce Springsteen. That's why it sounds funny. So, way back when, in the beginning of time, man made the fire, then the wheel went from a horse to an automobile. He said the world is mine. He took the oceans and the skies. He set the borders, built the walls. He won't stop till he owns it all. Here we are, standing on the brink of disaster. Enough is enough is enough is enough. I know the answer. Put a woman in charge. 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 The time has come. We've got to turn this world around. Call the mothers, call the daughters. We need the sisters of mercy now. Oh, yes, we do. She'll be a hero, not a fool. She got the power to change the rules. She got something and don't have. And she's kind and she understands. Let the ladies do what they were born to do. Raise the vibration. Make a better place for me and you. Put a woman in charge. 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 Hallelujah. It's gonna be some magic when the girls take over. It's gonna be fantastic. Whoa. Put a woman in charge.
It's so infectious.
You know, it's so funny. I just realized my coffee cup says "Women Who Changed the World." I had no idea I picked this one up. There's a lot of good ones on there.
Some of my songwriting friends from the Hudson Valley are weighing in here. Raquel Vidal, put them in charge.
Hey, Raquel.
But,
Yay.
needless to say, and there's Claudia Gibson, from formerly Hudson Valley, now down in Wimberley, Texas. And she was talking about that earlier song too. So tomorrow the convention starts. Has anyone been like in touch about this song as it relates to the campaign?
It's been crazy. Yeah, I mean, I'm not good at keeping statistics in my head, but every day Kelly's sending me like updates. Like I've had 135,000 views of me playing like a piece of this song. Kebmo has just taken off. You know, we're trying to put the word out. If they want to use it, they're welcome to for no charge. It's really been such an exciting and such a big relief the way that this transition to me has gone through, with so much respect and admiration for Biden making that tough choice. And I'm sure there's stuff going on behind the scenes that are, you know, complicated, but overall, I think it restored my sense of hope in our country being able to, you know, correct this last period of time that's been so difficult. And so, you know, there's still half the country is still not on board with, you know, the other half. So we're going to go through some stuff. It's going to be an interesting time. And I think as long as you know, music, like getting back to music, I mean, music is the most powerful thing that cuts through, you know, just cuts through all of the words and all the racket. And I know this from songs I've written, you know, when I've gone through loss, and how that will help someone grieve. The sound of the tone, the tonality, where the vowels fall, it all organizes itself if we get out of its way and just try to listen for what it wants to be. And I think that that's kind of our job, and that's art's job, you know, not just songs, but paintings and everything else that we manifest about where we are, where we think we're going. And it's just an amazing tool and gift that we have. And I think that's the only thing. Art is the only thing that's going to get us out of this.
Well, and it's also a crossover space. Like when I lived in the Hudson Valley near Dar for the previous 30 years, we used to gather frequently with a bunch of people, including a sort of a cowboy songwriter whose roots are in Wyoming, whose politics are completely divergent from mine. And even within my band, I played in a band, and
I know, I was listening to your music last night. It's great.
Cool. You know, a couple of my friends and I have very different vantage points of sustainable energy. You know, I'm not opposed to nuclear power. I've been in the nuclear power plant in the Hudson Valley as a reporter, but we find ways to kind of convene. Even Pete Seeger, you know, I played with Pete off and on for 20 years, and you know, he and I differed on some things too. But so music has that. If you find the physical process of playing with people can cut across boundaries. Dar, you've been in many circumstances as a songwriter and performer where you probably experience, you know, we could all be in a little bubble of sort of Americana-ish, progressive-ish bubble, or not. How do you find? Have you kind of found yourself in different environments with your music, Dar?
No, I'm in the bubble.
You're in the bubble.
No, but I think that there is something that's kind of, I mean, you're for nuclear power and other people are against nuclear power. You don't, as an ethos, believe in just blaming people, you know, large groups of people for things, you know, because of the color of their skin. You know, I mean, there's there's something to sort of puncture. There's a kind of a big, you know, hot air balloon that we can puncture with a certain kind of music, just to get, a person can say, I think that the private sector is a better sector for solving the world's problems. And people say, well, I think the public sector. And then you get people, you know, like, but getting to that part where a person understands that, you know, these things are important conversations, and that we're all trying to find solutions because we love this planet. We love being alive. We love each other. Is kind of what music, you know, I've met the guys that you work with, Andy, and they the music is so humanizing and helps us, not just songs. I love what Beth just said, but also like how we arrange ourselves in bands, social
Right.
groups, to play music. you know,
Yeah.
Noam Chomsky talks about the human scale, how important it is for us to have the human scale in what we do, and that when we get out of the human scale and overly abstract, we get, very inhumane, So all of but considering when I write about, I think that I've turned off people who would be really turned off by certain topics enough. Although I do have people who are dragged along to content. But yeah.
Yeah. Although, and you said something really important about human scale. I think there are songs that are the sort of global scale songs, about the basic issues, and then there's songs and sort of performance approaches that are really local, or that are more about incremental actions. I'm just, if you're okay with that, I'd like to play a little bit of your song Today and Every Day, which I loved. You built a bit of a campaign around it on social media, and I think
Anja Dovecote did this, did the animation. It's, she and I decided that she was going to do this even before I'd finished writing the song. She said she would do this for me, and I knew which one I wanted.
Yeah. Okay. So here goes. And this is about the little things we can do, sort of in our interactions with our neighbors, whatever their politics.
Hey there, polar bear, is quite a mess we found. Life is one heavy trip, our paws are sinking in the ground. I see you out lumbering at the break of dawn. How can we survive and save the day before the day is gone? Well, I know I'm gonna find a way. I know I'm gonna light the way. 'Cause if I'm ever gonna make it, then I gotta say, I can't save the world today and every day. Young blood coming up and coming from behind. You know you've got the force to change the world, and it's your mind. Your big plans are shining like the bright rays of the sun. We can't be done when all I see is that you just begun. Well, I know you're gonna find a way. I know you're gonna light the way. So if we're ever gonna make it, then you gotta say, I can't save the world today and every day. Some say the smallest things don't count, then say the big things don't amount to any answers either. Man, there is no break or breather. There's no time for this smug frustration. I say everyone's a power station.
Everyone's a power station.
I love that song. That's so good, Dar. And
Yeah.
man, what an amazing animation. That
I
takes
know,
so much time. It's
I'd
incredible.
forgotten. But I wanted to say something about the woman thing, Andy.
Sure.
I read, Gloria Steinem wrote something that really stayed with me, and I read it, 30 years ago almost. She said that in moments of, at the crossroads, women tend to over-rely on external feedback, and men tend to under-rely on external feedback. And so, and then when you mix that in with the old-fashioned, men are the providers, you're going to have, this kind of person who's not really attuned to a lot of social things, and talking about, well, we just have to pay attention to the shareholders and all that. And just all of these ways of not being attuned to what Beth said in the song with I don't know whose line that was, who came up with the line about raising the vibration. Women have traditionally survived really well by paying attention to the vibration, raising the vibration in the room, raising compassion in their children, raising compassion in their communities. They've recognized how important it is to foster warmth and raise the vibration and really listen to all of those cues, and sometimes over rely on them. And what I think is really wonderful in society is that was 25, 30 years ago that she wrote that. And I'm already seeing so much more cross-pollination that way. I'm seeing so much more sensitivity in men. I mean, I'm seeing where, for so many reasons. So we don't have to create that as a stereotype, but bringing up that higher vibration, that recognition of the social vibration is essential right now. And
Yeah.
so the songs that say put a woman in charge to me also say, like, put the woman in charge inside of all of us. And it's, you know, Biden's got a lot of, you know, he has stepped aside before when he was a vice president for a much younger, less experienced African-American president. All he wanted to do was say, look at that guy. Look at him. He never said, well, you know, back when I was, like, he never over-relied on all of these armored identities.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's what I hear when I hear put a woman in charge. And I think music plays to that in all of us, you know, that appreciation and love of the higher vibration,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
I wanted to ask you both if there are other songwriters and performers out there who you feel are on this beat, this, you know, to use the journalism frame. And then, you know, at the power level, you've got Taylor Swift. I think everyone's like waiting for Beyonce and Taylor Swift. What are they going to do? And so that's a different. There's that. You know, there's the power, and then there's the music. So
Exactly.
So who do you see out there that you think about these days?
I just heard yesterday, wasn't aware of this, but I just happened upon Sheryl Crow just put a song out, Put a Woman in the White House. You know, that's pretty direct. But I think, you know, the artists that have a lot of followers and a lot of fans and, you know, like the volume of Beyonce and Taylor Swift, it's a daunting position to be in. And I'm really grateful that they're both willing to say what they would do, because, and I know people can really go after artists and say, you should just stick to music and don't be telling us, you know, whatever, but you're not just a musician, you're a person. And I think if you have a voice, you can use your voice any way you want to, as long as you're not hurting somebody. And I think that's really great that they're willing to use their voice, whatever way they're willing to do it. You know, there's a lot of crazies out there right now. So I certainly don't blame someone if they don't want to do that, but I'm very grateful when they do. And I also think songs have to be really careful not to be preachy, because I think that can be very off-putting. And like that song you just played, that video, incredible song, because it's a gentle almost childlike, you know what, I'm going to do this. You're not saying you need to do this, you know, and I love songs that are telling me about you. And then I identify with you, you know, and then I want to, you know, go in that direction. So anyway, I just think there's a lot of power in this music thing and all forms of art. And that's, I think, our best tool that we have.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it reminds us of something more than tells us how to think. And, you know, I think that I figured out early on that I think the best in terms of movements, Andy, like in terms of, you know, things that are going on right now, one of the great things music can do is knock on the doors that are ready to be open, that we're not sure we're ready to be open. But, you know, there's doors we knock on 1,000 times, and we just kind of gather the people on our side of the door and everything. But like, what's really wonderful is when you suddenly realize that everybody cares about, you know, the ozone layer, or, you know, and it can take a work of art to knock on that door, and suddenly you see the sort of the social force behind it, and you're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, we all care about this? That, I think, is one of the most effective things, like put a woman in charge, especially with, you know, Kev Mo behind it as well. I mean, of the three of you, you know, it's a joyous moment where we recognize that we're in the same boat.
So let's see, in the height of the pandemic, actually, it was 2020. It was before the November 2020 election. I had the Neilds on, Narissa and Katrina, and they sang a beautiful song that this is, again, they were trying to drum up voting and engagement around the 2020 election. And if you don't mind, I'm going to play it as a sort of a throwback Sunday version. This is from our
Well, we're gonna need a boat that can sail on stormy seas. There will be days that'll bring us to our knees, praying for strength to carry on. Yeah, we're gonna need a boat, and we're gonna need a song. So we're gonna build a boat made with all our hands, made for you and me, just like this land. So grab a friend and a hammer and a nail, 'cause we're gonna build a boat and we're gonna set sail. Heave away, all away, bound, bound away. We'll make it safe to come back home. Yeah, we're gonna build a boat that fits all of us, no matter what you call that God you trust, no matter where you're from, you love. Yeah, we're gonna build a boat that's big enough. Heave away, all away, bound, bound away. We'll make it safe to come back home. Yeah, we're gonna build a boat that can sail on stormy seas. There will be days and nights that'll bring us to our knees, praying for strength to carry on. Yeah, we're gonna build a boat and we're gonna sing a song. Yeah, we're gonna build a boat and we're gonna sing a song.
Wow.
That's fantastic. Pretty rousing. It was quite a moment, and some of our other friends were involved there. Reggie Harris is a fantastic troubadour and historian and storyteller who's been making the rounds on the race front. Goes all around the country. Actually, Reggie, who's there, who I finally caught up with here in Maine recently. This isn't about music so much, but he was at a Black Lives Matter rally on a green in the Catskills up in a conservative town in the pandemic, and there was a MAGA rally at the same time on the same green, and he and a guy, some bearded guy, got into sort of a face-to-face, nose-to-nose, very masculine kind of moment, and Reggie felt his own blood rising, and he said to himself, I got to hold on here. And he stopped, he paused and backed off, and he said, "Hi, my name is Reggie. What's yours?"
Wow. Wow.
And it didn't solve world peace. It didn't make the guy into a Biden or Harris voter, but they started to talk as human beings.
Yeah.
I think finding moments like that, which is really hard to do on this glass, medium digital thing, but the more we can do that, the better.
Can I tell you a little quick story? I don't know if what your time is, but so that reminds me so much of my oldest sister, who I love so dearly and have deep respect for, and I know her as an intelligent, fair-minded person. Through this whole period of time, she's had a completely different perception of what she believes is happening, and I'm sure this is happening in a lot of families because there's been these different sources of information that are very kind of locked out of other sources. So we always start and end every conversation with "I love you," and sometimes we'll go in there and we'll start talking about, well, this is what's happening, and she'll be going, "No, that's what's happening." We even have a safe word because one of us will get like, "You're nuts. I don't know what you're watching." So this has been a practice that we've had, very respectfully, trying to just continue to keep the doorway open, and then sometimes we take a break from talking about it because the needle hasn't moved at all. Except when I wrote this song called The Truth, I wanted to write a song and I dedicate it to her when I play it, because I wanted to find a way to have this, the way of saying, so let's agree on what the truth means, not what the truth is.
Right.
And she loves this song, but she still has a completely different perception. And I'm just going to quickly run you through the lyric if I have just a second.
Absolutely.
And the weird thing about this lyric is it wrote itself. And I just wanted nothing in this song to be something that she would take issue with because of it, her different perception. So we both agree everything in this song is accurate. Oh, the truth is only now and always what remains. Oh, the truth is only everlasting, never changed. Lock it down, block it out, bury it down for 1,000 years. It's still there, laid bare, a diamond in the dirt, so right and clear. The truth is calling deep inside my wounded heart. Oh, the truth is solid when the whole world falls apart. Twisted vines, bloodlines flow from the valley to the river's rush. Little thread, bright red, dancing on the breeze through the underbrush. Oh, the truth is sleeping in the marrow of the bones. The truth is seeping out from under what's unknown. Love may be blind, but truth will always find its way back to the light. Its brilliance cuts like a knife. The truth is ringing all the bells from hell to Rome. Oh, the truth is singing, hallelujah, let's go home. And the fact that I can play that song for her and she goes, yes, gives me hope, weirdly, because she still has a different perception. But it feels like we're in this place where there's this membrane between half of us and the other half that are, she says, oh, you're brainwashed and you are completely wrong. And I say, no, you're brainwashed and you're completely wrong. But only one of us is actually, or maybe, I don't know. It's a very confusing time to be in the world. And I think there are extremes from both sides. And so what I find in music is the one way I can connect and find that way. Like Dolly just wrote a great song on her last album where she's saying, get your act together, folks. And she's talking to everybody like,
Right.
stop this. So anyway, that's my little lecture this morning.
Sorry, Dar.
No, sorry. I agree. I mean, the thing that I've noticed in my, in my life, and then in social groups and social movements that I've been a part of, is that there's one thing I do think of as a dangerous truth is looking at the world in terms of, who can we blame and who can we humiliate and how, and winner, zero sum game. If there's going to be a winner, somebody has to be a loser. And I don't know many people who self-identify that way, but something that I really can't stand about Trump is that, whether he was a Democrat or a Republican, he plays on that thing that if it were somebody that you knew, it would be the equivalent of a person standing at the foot of your bed every morning. And we saw this with Roger Ailes too, when he lived in our town, standing at your bed in the morning with a megaphone that says, remember all the stupid things you did yesterday. Remember all the things that you can't do, and just stay in bed and just don't do anything because it's just hopeless. And if you can't handle that, then blame it on somebody else. So take all that humiliation that I put into you, creating these zero-sum games. If somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, and make sure you find a loser. And I think that music sort of takes back some of that territory of the we, of how much we succeed collectively, no matter what the music is, because you're feeling, as Peter Yarrow says, you're feeling the vibrations of the people next to you, which he said when I was in my classroom once. I'm like, the kids are not going to admit that they're feeling the vibration, but they've just been singing with them. They're like, we feel the vibration. So I do think that philosophies and people who foster when in doubt, blame somebody, assume that somebody's got to lose if somebody's going to win, assume that you got to take everything, you got to hoard it. I think those are dangerous things, frankly, and that it is. And I think that I'm happy to be a musician who tries to foster the collective sense that we're better together, and that we can, like that society loves us, that we can contribute. We have something to contribute. That's another thing to really point out to people. And that there are times when people have taken care of us, which is really true for me. I mean, I lost my mind once and I wouldn't have put it back together alone. So it's like, I know where I stand.
Yeah, well, that sort of delineation, the dividing line between rhetoric that takes us to the darker sides of ourselves, and which at least holds the opening for conversation, shows a lot about what's going on right now. And Trump, he has this song that was on the charts. It wasn't a song; it was the some of the incarcerated January 6th people singing the "God Bless America," and Trump doing the voiceover is Trump doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and it was millions and millions and millions of views. So music is being used and abused all around us. There've been some more really good comments came in. Someone did note that I've mentioned the Neils have another song that I was loving called "Tyrants Always Fall."
Yeah.
Which anyone who is watching, just Google for it, find it on Spotify or on YouTube, and it definitely gets at this bigger issue we've been talking about too. Beth, so you're heading out to the UK. Actually, they've had their own social division and these last few years.
Sounds like it's been wild over there. I mean, the last I heard, there was a huge counter demonstration that was quite inspiring, where people came out in much bigger numbers to say, we're not going to try to take one faction of people and stomp them down. Like it was really quite amazing. I'm not up on all of it, but I do think, I mean, whatever this stuff is, it's pervasive across all humanity. It's not restricted to our political systems. It's all over the place. And that, like you said, music can be used to further the fear, and it can be used to help heal the fear. And, my sister is not a fan of the personality of Trump, but she's been led to believe, in my opinion, she believes it's because it's true, but I believe because she's been led to believe that there's this other thing that's even worse than that we have to be super careful that doesn't happen. And that's, to me, that's where there's the disconnect. Because I'm like, how can you even, but it's not about that. It's about, but this is even worse. So we got, that's a problem, but this is a bigger problem. And even just that is stunning to me, just stunning. So I'm just, punching away with my little songs here. Pow, pow, pow.
Yeah. Does this ever come up in the writing gaggles in Nashville? Which Nashville is a town that has all kinds of politics, and
I'm sure. Well, there's quite a divide too. So there's some, there's a lot of different groups of, I mean, country music used to be pretty much one political bent, and it's getting quite shaken up a bit. So yeah, I mean, there's been some interesting things. I mean, with Beyonce doing a country album, and I say quotations because some people would say that's not really country, but for her, that's country, and it did bring some huge opportunities for incredibly talented women of color that have been trying to break into the country music, space for a long time. So there's all that stuff. Music is just this amazing, it's like a shovel that just digs up the earth. But, Post Malone was just here writing with everybody in town, including Dolly Parton, and is putting out a record where he literally came here and wrote with each artist in person. So lots is getting kind of shaken up. It's a really interesting time to be here.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, my older son lives in Nashville. He works in the movie business, but and he's someone that I've had that same struggle with that you mentioned with your family member. And we don't have a safe word, but we have found ways to convey and love each other. And
I mean, the thing is, there's going to be people in most people's lives that are not going to see the same perception, because there's just been such a huge amount of misinformation, and forces that are working really hard to distort. Even when I'm looking at from my end, I'm looking at everything very, I'm just looking for my gut feeling, because there's a lot that's wrong out there in the media. The media it's so easy to distort things. So the best thing you can do is love the person on your right and on your left and in your family. Love them. If you hit an impasse, take a break. I mean, my sister-in-law go, let's just talk about something else,
Yeah.
And she's an incredible person who I respect. And I had another friend, and I was telling her I was going through a frustrating time with her. My friend said, well, I can't even believe you're even still speaking to her. And I'm like, well, she's my sister, and I don't want to lose my connection with her. And we can work this out. We may never agree, but we're not going to disconnect from each other. That's more important than anything.
Yeah.
And that brings up something. There's a guy at Columbia University named Peter Coleman who runs something called the Difficult Conversations Laboratory. And
Ooh, I love that.
lots of important lessons in his work. He's a psychologist, but he also came up through conflict resolution in the Middle East and all kinds of places. And he said something really important to me once on one of these shows early in the pandemic, when I was talking about when I was at the New York Times. I had a blog where I was trying to use the dialogue with the audience a lot, and the Times also evolved this thing on their opinion section called Room for Debate. And I thought that was really flawed, because the whole frame of a debate is to find the disagreement, not the points of agreement. I said, we need a room for agreement.
Yeah, that's great.
It was great. I've been on that horse for a while. And then Peter Coleman said to me, actually, no, what you need is room for cooperation. Meaning you're never, as you just said, me and my son, you and your, was it your sister or someone else?
My sister.
I mean, you're never going to agree, but you do cooperate. And you find, like, democracy is all about that, right? It's about respecting our differences, understanding there's a thing called the Constitution that shapes how we behave and vote and stuff. And then it's the cooperation part that is so distinct from agreement that I find in my own head, I try to kind of remember that. And that then can lead to much more progress, because it's like your job isn't to get the other person to agree. It's just to say, hey, let's figure out how to do this thing. And it's really kind of cool.
One of the great lessons to me that I learned from my late husband, Bob, who passed away a couple of years ago, he and I had very different ways to argue, and I was very verbal, and he would take some time and think. And I had to learn how to create space to listen deeply and then repeat back to him what I just heard him say, so that he knew that I heard what he said. It was a huge learning curve for me, because it's not my normal. And it changed a lot of the ways that I'm in the world to learn a little bit about doing that. I'm still not really good at it, but being able to tolerate somebody telling you something, you're just going, that's not true, and just not arguing and letting them finish is like a big, big deal for me. Sorry, Dar, I want you.
No, I'm just agreeing. Yeah, I mean, I actually have to just say, I'm so interested in this stuff that I wrote a whole other book besides my music about watching towns find their place. And when I hear doing the Pledge of Allegiance over, this thing to sort of reverse, like, really one of the the closest thing we came to a coup in our history, it's just the 19th century. I kind of feel like, we didn't get to them in time. The Americans who actually think that we need to overthrow the government, a lot of people, what I came to as a sort of a big thought after writing the book was the opposite of the opposite of division is not unity, it is collaboration. And whenever I say that to audiences, I say and Americans are very good at collaboration. They're very good at it. So the idea that we have to break a family tie over, dueling, there's a lot to critique on cable news, but there are so many things we can do to collaborate locally, or even around, what Robert Putnam points out in terms of social capital, that sort of sense of, who can lend me a cup of sugar, who can't lend me a cup of sugar. There's so many ways that we can collaborate through our interests across ideological lines, and that's called bridging social capitalism. Social capital. There's so many ways that we can bridge through things we're interested in that we don't really necessarily have to go we don't have to break ties over our ideologies, because we can find ways to collaborate around the stuff that we do. You know, I'm so into this thrift sale that we're doing with my friends, and we've drawn all sorts of people who are just interested in that stuff. And I think that it's, you know, we get 2,000 pounds of clothing that aren't going into the landfill, and I'll take it. You know,
You got to do a documentary on your thrift sale. I mean, it's so
I think
fantastic.
it's probably a little less interesting than I think it is.
Oh no.
But my mom works at something called the Take It or Leave It in Chappaqua, and that there's a whole bunch of ideological stuff going on under the surface of the people who do it. But, you know, just so many things getting into the hands of people who don't have the money or don't want to create that waste. I think at the end of the day, what I've discovered is that people who don't feel like they have any power in society and that they've been humiliated by society can become very dangerous. They can become mentally ill. They can become addicted and dangerous in that way, in terms of what they do out of desperation. And they get that armored under relying on external feedback because they're so angry at the external feedback. And I feel like music, to come full circle, is maybe some way that we can sort of help them feel that fluttering energy next to them of we, and maybe help them find that those chain links back to feeling like they count. There's a lot that makes people feel like they don't count, and that's dangerous, I think. So I'm happy to be on the increase the connection genre, or yes, medium.
I wanted to ask you both, can you go a little past the turn of the hour or
Yeah.
or hard stop? Oh, that would be great. I do want to play that video version of your studio version of the song before we close out, Beth.
Okay, great.
But I also wanted this guy, I met this character up here. He's a retired seaweed farmer named Carl Karish, who's also an avid folk musician, and he wrote a beautiful ballad about seaweed, about farming seaweed, just like an old nautical ballad. And then he was sitting with me one day at this open mic, and he played this, he wrote a song called I'm Gonna Stump, I'm Gonna Bump, I'm Gonna Dump Trump. And he said his goal for this song was to separate the man from his followers. He was trying to figure out a way to write a song that exposes Trump's syndrome without alienating, or at least capturing maybe potentially some people who are stuck in that mode. I don't know that he's succeeded, but I do think he kind of captures how, there's many forms and many ways to go at this. And if you're okay with it, I'd like to play his tune and then we'll close out with Beth's tune. There's quite a contrast. And he's a total main character who you would never expect to be the kind of person that would do this kind of song, but I think it's worth a listen. So hold on. This would be its debut, and here's Carl Karish.
I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna dump Trump. I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna dump Trump. I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna dump Trump. He's a liar, he's a con man, a philanderer, a thief. This is not the man we want for our commander-in-chief. All he's ever cared for is his money and fame. Whatever works for Donald, that's the name of the game. That's why I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna dump Trump. I'm going to register and vote, I'm going to dump Trump. I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna dump Trump. Now I know some Republicans I call my good friends. We can talk things over, work it out in the end. But that power addict Trump and the lackeys he appoints, they'd throw our whole blessed nation out of joint. That's why I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna dump Trump. I'm gonna register and vote, I'm gonna dump Trump. I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna dumb trump. He lies to the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews. And all he really thinks about is how he can use you. Now, I don't hate the man, hate the sin, forgive the sinner. But I pray with all my heart that Joe Biden is the winner. Because I love this nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Because I treasure democracy, I sing, God bless America, the land I love. That's why I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna dump Trump. Yes, I'm gonna stump, I'm gonna bump, I'm gonna dump Trump. All together, let's stump, let's bump, let's dump Trump. And while we're at it, let's all move to a new political era based on cooperation with kindness. Now that takes courage.
There you go.
That's so dear. Wow.
That's the right word for it.
Yeah.
I love that guitar. It's beautiful. I'm just like, ooh, what guitar is that?
I mean, it really helps if something's just appealing. You know, when people do, I was at an spray the thing against spraying the sides of the streets with Roundup because they were doing that to kill weeds. And this dancing log came, this like dancing tree came, and it just looked horrible. It just looked like a piece of garbage. And he starts dancing. I'm like, and of course that was on the news. I'm like, if you're gonna bring some art into your thing, like appealing, just beta test it a little bit with your friends, and because beautiful art. You know, I wrote a piece that said, if Nazis are coming to your town, gather up all the choruses and find songs to sing together on some community steps, because there's so many different kinds of, congregational choruses, youth choruses, school choruses, and just meet each other in that thing. Don't just, meet each other there, and it's going to be beautiful. And the beauty alone, in the civil rights era, the way people sang in the streets, the beauty alone was a force to be reckoned with. And he's so appealing, it just seems so to come from such a warm, lovely place and genuine place with that Maine accent. It's like, that's a thing. Like, I just like him, and so I'm liking what he's liking.
Well, it's been great to have you both here today. And folks who want to find more, Beth Nielsen with an E, Nielsen, Chapman.com.
The Danish spelling.
Yeah. And darwilliams.com for Dar. Good luck on your UK tour.
Thank you.
And if you want to say one more thing about either what people could do with their own music or how they can use music in pursuit of progress at the political level or any level, chime in. And then I'd like to close out. I'll play that clip from the great tune you co-wrote. Any last?
I never set out to try to be political or not be political. I just try to keep it human, and then sometimes it intersects with that world. And certainly, being able to be a part of this song with Keb, who is one of the people I know as a man who really respects and understands the deep dynamic with women, that we're not lesser or more. We're just people. We're all humans. He just brought all of that into the song. So I want to say thank you to Keb for inviting me to be a part of this song. But what do you want to add there, Dar, in your line of work?
Make music with your friends, because make music with your friends, listen to music with your friends, make music a part of your social world, writing songs, playing songs, listening to songs. Because a lot of times I will say this, there's a journalist with the last name Smucker who talked about the importance of disco. And he said, we think of it as a real liberation moment for the gay movement, but it was a whole black, white, brown. If you had the beat, if you were creating the beat, if you were Gloria Estefan creating the beat, or Donna Summer, if you had the beat and you could move your ass and do it, that was the uniting thing. And he said it was a time of unprecedented peace walks, anti-nuke walks, your favorite, Andy. But, all of those things, because he said people were just used to getting up and moving with their friends. So I kind of have this raw sociological sense of music after doing it for so long. Like there's nothing like uniting around a lyric and just having, opening our hearts together. I'm in for that. But just creating, making music a rhythm of our lives, create social units that and social trust that got us into the streets, got us participating and connecting and feeling like that matters.
That's great. Yeah. And up here again, that's everywhere, from open mics that bring people in from all the hinterlands.
That's it.
Different politics come together in the winter and even in the summer. And there's a ukulele orchestras. Lisa, my wife, is learning ukulele that way. And then in Nashville, there's this. So we're gonna close out with this version of
Time has come. We've got to turn this world around. Call the mothers, call the daughters. We need the sisters of mercy now.
Oh, yes, we do.
She'll be a hero, not a fool. She's got the power to change the rules. She got something men don't have.
Oh, yes, she does.
She's kind and she understands. Let the ladies do what they were born to do. Raise the vibration, make a better place for me and you. Put a woman in charge. 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 When the girls take over, it's gonna be fantastic. Put a woman in charge. 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 Put a woman in charge.
It's a hit.
Love
Thank
working
you.
with Ray Kennedy.
Amazing.
Yes.
What again, just such the social forces around the song. I always react at both levels. Like the message of the song, how beautifully written the song is, no, like we could speak to the science of sound in terms of the craft of how that was written and how moving it is. But like those dudes like sitting there like, yep, put a woman in charge, like they're feeling their power. They're not feeling like something's being taken away from them. And how do we get to that place where people understand that sharing power makes us stronger? Like I think music's good for that.
Yeah. It was such a delight. And there's so much joy in that song. It's not like confrontational, like put a woman in charge because you guys suck. There's nothing derogatory about men in that song. It's just that, men did this and that, and they did that, and they built the walls, and they were in charge of everything. Okay, good. And now, you know what? Time has come. It's not, it doesn't have to put the other half down, which is what I love about it.
And there is a lot of new energy. There's just a lot of new energy in the who gets the microphone thing. It's not Taylor Swift who's creating the voter registration drive. It's the Swifties. You know,
That's
it's
true.
by experiencing that vibration in the arena, you know, that they found each other and they are driving the drive. And you know, they are finding that access very exciting.
That's actually that's a really important point. It could become self-sustaining, and the reverberations can really be powerful. Well, there's a lot of work to do in the next 78 days or whatever it is, not to mention the days following that day, because of the determination of some to disrupt even the confidence in the vote. So I hope you all have your energy, your batteries charged for what's to come. Thanks for all the work you do through your music, and both of
Andy,
you.
thank you for your music, Andy Revkin. And
Yeah.
make
you.
sure that people know, because you tell the big stories, the context, the long stories, the long game. I sang on your song Arlington, you know, really interesting angle of looking at the big picture of war and peace, you know, and so you keep at it too, Andy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It keeps me sane. You know, the music for me for decades has filled gaps in telling stories in a way that I can't do in an article in a newspaper or magazine. And whether it's the history of Arlington Cemetery, or like the song I recently did, that I think, Dar, you've heard, the one about getting off your phone and going out and like meeting your neighbor and having an argument with a barber.
Yes, exactly.
So it helps. I couldn't really write an article about that. So thank you both of you for being here today, and good luck with the rest of your journeys this year and onward. And anyone who wants to learn more, go to revkin.substack.com, where I have a piece with the links, a lot of background. And get in touch with me. That scrolling bar at the bottom has ways to get in touch with me about future episodes. And you've inspired me to try to keep the Sunday Sanity show back in business.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It builds a really beautiful musical community that it ended up including a guy in Zambia. And I had people in Zambia and the UK and the Hudson Valley collaborating on a song who met via this digital thing that we did.
Wow.
So that's all kind of awesome too. This is Andy Revkin, and we'll sign off there and do more going forward again. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.